Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guests and I each pick a film related in some shape or form. And hopefully, by the end of this episode, you have two films to go check out. And joining me, as always, every month is my friend and fellow member of the crew. It is Luke.
Hello, so good to be back.
Absolutely. And we have a double dose of Satoshi Kon anime. We're basically doing half his filmography since
Yes.
unfortunately he only had four feature films before his untimely death. But we do have on our docket for this episode Paprika and Millennium Actress. So a couple of bold visual anime feasts for the eyes and
Mhm.
also maybe melting your brain a little bit. And we're going to figure that out. But let's dive into Paprika from 2006. And when a machine that allows therapists to enter their patients' dreams is stolen, all hell breaks loose. Only a young female therapist, Paprika, can stop it. Which also, I guess, in context, that is slightly misleading. The synopsis, if you think about who is what and what is who and what a film this is, and I think one interesting little nugget here is I think there's a contingency of people on the internet because the internet really is mad at Christopher Nolan because basically they think that he stole the idea for Inception from this movie. Um
Mhm. And I'm
but
pretty
that'll
sure,
be
isn't he on record saying, yeah, that it was a huge inspiration for Inception?
he
Like,
stole it, Luke.
mm,
He stole it. Don't argue with the internet, Luke.
I know, right?
But Luke, what are your general thoughts on Paprika?
I absolutely love this movie. It's such a quirky, it's such a colorful, it's such a vibe movie from the get-go. And the dreams, the older I get, the more I appreciate, like, hey, this might not be reality. And if filmmakers actually utilize it to its full extent, those movies I find more fun. And so like it is a bit confusing. Oh, this is a dream. Oh, this is not a dream. What is reality? But like in animated form, and it's Kon doing that, it's absolutely mesmerizing. It's wild. It's surprisingly touching. Like I absolutely adore this movie, and I didn't think I was because I was like, oh yeah, seems like a wild movie. I've heard you need to watch it more than once to appreciate it, and yada yada yada. I'm like, okay, and this was my first watch for both of these, by the way. So, and I absolutely adored it. So I think on a rewatch, it's gonna be even better. What about you, Shane?
So I'd like to point out that on the poster, the tagline is "This is your brain on anime," which is
Fair. I actually like.
amazing, absolutely amazing. Which this is very interesting because I feel like the only one of Satoshi Kon's films that is like actually straightforward is Tokyo Godfathers
I
because
was gonna say Millennium Actress actually is more probably most accessible, but
that one at least is like manipulating, like going through. Well, we'll get into it,
yeah.
going into like memories and stuff. Like at least Tokyo Godfathers is grounded and just
Hmm.
dealing with a group of people,
Yep.
um, dealing with day to day things. But like that generally isn't his vibe. And I
Hmm.
feel like if you put what would have been a really mind melting experience was doing Perfect Blue and Paprika together.
Oh yeah,
Because
talk about yeah.
it's that kind of experience of like what's reality,
Hmm.
what is your mental health breaking, and with this it's less about like your mental health and breaking with reality. It's literally, is this reality or are we stuck in a dream? And when you introduce dreams into a visual medium,
Hmm.
you can do anything, and
Yep.
that's the fascinating thing. And we are dropped into this weird circus, this weird hallway where somebody's like running down the hallway and just body just
Falling.
floating there. And you're
Yeah.
just like, what is going on here? And this film is fascinating because it has an amazing concept. The idea of a machine that's slowly fracturing the lines between dream and reality is an interesting concept. You have this interesting idea of you have Hiba, who who's the actual therapist, and
Hmm.
then Paprika is her alternate dream like spy ego, which is why I made that comment about the synopsis. I'm like, I don't think that's technically accurate what they say in the synopsis because it's not that simple. And
Hmm.
that's what's interesting about it, is having this alternate um personality, persona. Um it's so funny because I don't know about you, Luke. I don't remember my dreams very often.
It depends. Like, I
Mhm.
feel for me, it depends if the dream is any good or like
It's like I
how
only remember my good dreams.
how invest or more like how invested I am. Like sometimes I know I'm invested in a dream. I wake up and then like I think about it for most of the day, and sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, like I've dreamt about this for like a next minute, but like in 2 minutes after I wake up, I'm like, oh, what was the dream again? I don't know. Anyway.
What's interesting is, so don't know my own dream persona, but I
Mhm.
know my wife's dream persona of me.
Okay.
Dream Shane is a son of a bitch. Um, and apparently he's a terrible human being. So I think Jess is manifesting all of like the darkness of me and turning him into somebody who haunts her dreams.
So what I'm hearing is that she wake up a lot saying, "Why did you cheat on me with this girl, Shane? Why would you do this to me?"
Well, that's the kind of stuff that happens in her dreams. Just like, well, Shane's not treating me bad in real life. I'm gonna dream that.
For the record,
And
I've been there. Like my wife's also woken up every once in a while, just like, "I'm so mad at you because I had a dream that you did this and this." I'm like, "Okay, but I didn't. I know, but I'm mad. Let me be mad."
okay, so Dream Luke is also a son of a bitch.
Sometimes
Sometimes
sometimes she has very nice dreams about me. Very
I don't.
spicy dreams about me, apparently. And then sometimes it's like, oh, why would like you cheated on me with this person. Why would you cheat on her with me? I'm like, I don't know. It's your head.
It's like I don't take. It's like, here's a public service announcement. I do not take responsibility for my actions in anybody else's dreams because it's
Correct.
not me.
Correct.
I don't have this machine. I did not enter your dreams. But this is such a fascinating idea, and to have this cool, interesting, mysterious figure going through these dreams trying to figure this out. And just from a visual standpoint, this movie is like mind blowing
Hmm.
in terms of the creativity, whether it's giant robots or creepy clowns and overwhelming crowds and people like dissipating into some other substances and mirrors and all kinds of stuff. And it's very obvious that this film has become very influential
Hmm.
for other films, including Inception. But
Yes.
it's such a fascinating experience, and it's 90 minutes. It's
Hmm.
nice, it's lean, and it just pushes the boundaries of what you're able to do with visual storytelling. And I'm not going to use the term that people like to label it, but I think Satoshi Kon was in the same kind of place where, David Lynch, who said, the world doesn't need to make sense. So why does
Hmm.
my films? Satoshi Kon's not, with at least a few of his films, was not expecting you to have a nice, clean takeaway of
Hmm.
like, oh, that was easy. No, this movie's not easy. This isn't going
Nope.
to make it easy for you, but it is a worthwhile investment of your time and experience because it is thought provoking. It's honestly oddly terrifying
Hmm.
because
Yep.
there's just like really haunting things that are going to happen in this movie. And like, oh my God, there's so many genres that this movie has on IMDb. So many of them are repetitive, and they should probably clean that up. But none of them are hard. But the thing is, there's some horrifying things that you see in this movie because dreams are weird.
Hmm.
Dreams are
Hmm.
weird, Luke.
They sure are. But so what I was gonna touch on a couple of things. So you kind of said this, like, this movie is only 90 minutes, but the pacing is just flawless. The pacing just goes, from dream to dream, from this set to this set, but it never feels like too much. Also, what I've noticed, I don't know if it's just me. First of all, it's 2006, right? Movie. That's
Mm.
20 years now, 20 years ago, Shane, which is insane.
Yeah,
So just, nothing is real, but also I was like, this animation style is slightly like, it's, when you think of Japanese animation style, this is very similar to, the mainstream, but also, like, it's still different than even Ghibli movies. And I think I
yep.
noticed what the difference is. Despite it being look great looking and, like, visual, like, masterpiece, like, I think Ghibli movies are always like slightly harder. Like, there's like more edges, like actual edges to those.
Mm.
Whereas here, like I don't know how else to describe it.
Something fluid
Yeah, not even fluid,
about.
like, yeah, like softer. Like, there's like, all the edges are a bit softer, bit rounder. And like that, I'm not an expert, so this is my dumb brain trying to make some sort of sense out of this. But because I've seen, I would imagine you have as well, now all of his feature movies, like Satoshi
Yes.
Kon's, so, like, all of his movies look kind of mainstream, but there is like this softness to them, which is weird because with quite a few he deals with, like, dark subjects. Dark, there's a nudity. In Perfect Blue there's a rape scene,
Yeah.
and and that's the other difference. He is not afraid to go dark. Unlike, like Ghibli movies and all that, they have their dark subplots, but they are most of it like kind of family friendly. Like,
Well, and
like you can read underneath the surface, like, oh, this is actually about, like, death of a relative and dealing with death and that. Yeah, 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 100%. There are adult themes in those movies. But for most Ghibli movies, you can watch with your kid. I don't think you can watch Perfect, well, definitely not Perfect Blue with your kid. This movie is on a verge, I would say, like, depending on the kid's age, because, like, Satoshi Kon is not. I admire this man, because, dreams, anything can happen, the good and the bad. And I
mm,
really loved when somebody's not trying to sanitize the world, whether it's a normal world or a dream world. And it's like, hey, we have these dreams, we also have these dreams, and let me try to blend it, like mix it, so it makes some sort of sense. And I think ultimately he does it flawlessly. Like, the love story, like, what I suggested or what I touched on before, there is a very fat man and there is a very thin psychiatrist. And then we slowly learn that she actually has feelings for him, and then the end is so sweet, and it comes kind of out of nowhere, but it's also not. It's just there are so many things happening that it can feel like it came out of nowhere, but actually it's not. And it touches you on a deep, well, at least it touched me on a deeper level, and I'm like, holy shit, this movie actually has some genuine emotions in them. And yeah, like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this movie, like, it needs to be rewatched more so I can pick up on even more details. But this is a world I would love. I think I can imagine myself going back into.
well, and if you really think about it, if you take a step back, it is a procedural.
Hmm.
It's a case, and like that's the interesting thing because this has the structure of a procedural
Hmm.
detective story. Because you have this detective, you have this psychiatrist who has like a spy alter ego in dreams,
Hmm.
and that's an interesting dynamic between the two of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you have Shiba's dynamic with her colleagues, and there's some interesting character dynamics in a film that most people probably aren't going to talk about the characters most that stands out. And because if you ask somebody what were the things that stood out most to you about this film, it's probably going to be the visuals. It's
Yeah.
going to be those fantastical elements, but there is something human at the core of it. And what's interesting is I think Perfect Blue still feels very much in that mostly 2D hand-drawn animated space.
Hmm.
This film really pushes the boundaries of incorporating 3D animation
Hmm.
and computer generated animation. And I think that's essential because it's an interesting stark contrast between this gorgeous looking hand drawn animation, these characters and everything, and then when it starts warping because it's incorporating computer generated animation, the 3D animation, it gives it this rubbery fluidity of dreams and how things are malleable in dreams. And I think that kind of just reinforces what this film is going for in that way. And it's fascinating because I feel like there's a literal moment where it's like you're ripping the skin away to reveal the true person inside of a dream, and like there's literal imagery of that in this, and that's really interesting. And Hayashibara, who plays Chiba and Paprika, is great. She
Yep.
is fantastic and really embodying these two characters and their journeys. What's so fascinating about this film is how creative it is. Now, I feel like there's some films that have a really interesting concept, but don't have the budget potentially to really fully immerse itself in this fantastical or science fictional space. This
Hmm.
being anime, there's no bounds. And
No.
Satoshi Kon treats it like there are none. And
Hmm.
I think when you have like giant robots and giant people and a marching band of frogs and all kinds of strange things going on in this film, people exploding into butterflies and all different types of stuff like this. That's really interesting and creative and pushing the boundaries of what you can do with this story.
No, 100%. To your point about characters, this is another layer, and something we also touched on, like how, you know, your dream, Shane dream, and like, in other people's like dreams is totally different. And here, like, you have this like straight-laced, always serious psychiatrist, and then her alter ego is this like, a manic pixie dream girl, literally,
Yeah.
Paprika, that she just all over the place, but she gets shit done. And I think this is also like, a very interesting take on, hey, like maybe maybe Paprika is her alter ego inside, but she doesn't want to let it out because like she is like too serious and all that. Like, she is bound by reality of her profession, her life. But maybe there's an argument to be made that deep inside, this is how she feels like. And that's why, Paprika is that manifestation, her dream manifestation, and that's why she's the ultimate hero. Also, what I was gonna bring up, so this is 2006 movie, so therefore I was like, this wasn't nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, right? For 2007. So not even it wasn't. It was in a year where there was only three animated nominees, Shane.
Yes.
Winner was Happy Feet. Nominees were Cars and Monster House. Like, surely, like even the fourth one being Paprika would, like, I like me some Happy Feet, but I mean,
Which Cars is fun.
it is
Cars
fun.
is not a great movie. It's a fun movie, and it's definitely like on the lower end of Pixar,
Yes,
especially at that point,
100%.
especially.
That's the obvious standout from that first run. Yes.
And then you have I'll say I've never watched Monster House, but it's so interesting that that got nominated for animated feature, and I'm glad they did away with three nominees for that category because that's so frustrating that not only are you banishing like we won't take animation as seriously as other live action films, and we won't take it seriously enough where we won't even give it full five nominees.
As somebody who has seen Monster House, it's not, no, no, no.
No,
Even in 2006, when you watch it, it's like, no. And then you see a movie from Japan in the same category that's miles above this. Miles. Like, this is not even the same league.
no.
And I'm like, Academy, this is some bullshit.
Well, it's
Bec-
interesting because Happy Feet is weird
Happy Feet
for
is weird, but
sure.
I understand because that's how they want to do, those before, long before George Miller did Fury Road and all that. So
Yeah,
that was before they gonna, and you know what? Hey, let's give Georgie, some Oscar or two for a movie that's kind of weird, but hey, it's kind of animated, so it applies to this category. We cannot
yeah.
nominate it for the best picture, but no, yeah. So I was just gonna bring it up. I'm like, yeah. This, like Satoshi Kon, it was such a interesting person. It's so sad that he died in 2010.
Let's see,
I'm pretty
because
sure it was like 2010.
yep, 2010. He was only 46 years old.
I believe it's some sort of cancer that got him,
Hmm.
like pancreatic cancer. Like some doesn't really matter, but it is some sort of cancer, and it's so unfortunate because I would love to see what his movies would look like now and
Yeah.
his take on, because like this genuinely he feels like with this movie, with the Millennium Actress, with the Perfect Blue, even with the Tokyo Godfather, all four, I've seen all four of them now. They are all excellent. And
Hmm.
especially with something like this one or a Perfect Blue, he was actually leaps and bounds ahead of many of his peers. Like Perfect Blue predicted like the internet culture, the stan culture, like the obsessiveness of that, 20, 30 years before it actually happened. Or it's like, oh, hey, this could happen. This could be even more awful. And Paprika with the dreams, how many, like we had, like obviously Inception is the big one. You know, is it the same movie? Yes. To an extent. It's the same kind of like dreams within dreams, what is real, what is not. Like,
Well, to be fair, the concept
yes.
is very, very similar. The narratives are not.
Yeah. No, you know
Because,
what they
like,
say in Hollywood? If you gotta steal, you need to steal from the best.
well,
You know,
because, like, the idea, the concept is similar, but, Inception is an inverse heist film.
yes.
This is a detective story. So, it's not the same movie, people.
hmm
They
hmm
didn't, like, Christopher Nolan didn't steal the script of this movie.
But
And
definitely he
because,
must have seen it. Like
well, no, he,
even in the hallway scene, like I'm not saying
yeah,
like it's spinning or anything, but I'm like, hey, that kind of looks like that hallway from Inception. And I'm like, huh?
there's definitely some, and I mentioned mirrors.
Yeah.
I think there's some of that motif as well in
hmm
that kind of way. So, and here's the thing. It wasn't the only film from 2010 that did the same basic idea, ripping off motifs from a Satoshi Kon film, because look at Black Swan.
Yep.
It's very interesting that 2010 was, oh wait.
No,
Hmm.
it is. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just thinking that's when Satoshi Kon passed away. And it was also
Mm.
the same year that some of the biggest films of the year were utilizing a lot of influences from his films.
hmm
That
hmm
just seems interesting. That's just an interesting idea.
It
Um,
is.
but this man has been extremely influential
hmm
on like that's Christopher Nolan and Darren Aronofsky.
Yep.
These are some really big names of their generation of filmmakers.
hmm
So I think that's very interesting. But I guess, Luke, was there anything else you wanted to add specifically about Paprika before we jump into Millennium Actress?
Um, just yeah, it's a sweet movie. It's a wild movie. Just watch it and admire it, and because I will from now on. Yeah.
Absolutely. And jumping into Millennium Actress from 2001, this is maybe 7 minutes. So
hmm
even a little bit tighter.
Yep.
A TV interviewer and his cameraman meet a former actress and travel through her memories and career. So, this similar kinds of elements of diving into somebody instead of somebody else's dreams, we're diving into their memories and experiencing them. But, Luke, what are your general thoughts on Millennium Actress?
I am on a low side of love it. Like I'm not as high as I was on Paprika, but look, this film definitely grew on me the longer I spent with it. And actually like genuinely like as you know, the further I got into the story, the more I'm, oh wait, this is actually better than I'm giving it credit for. Because as the story unravels and is actually like gets you in, like it's kind of like you don't know, like there's a snake around you, and the snake is slowly squeezing you in, but it's so slow you don't even realize it. And then at some point you cannot breathe. This is kind of the same movie. At first I was like, okay, this is fine. Okay, this is fine. Oh wait, this is actually better than fine. No, wait. This is actually even better than fine. So like weirdly, it's not the dream weird like movie like Paprika that I need to rewatch. It is this movie I need to rewatch to I think fully appreciate it. What about you, Shane?
This is so I this was the last of his films that I watched
Hmm.
out of the four of them, and I actually watched this a couple months ago.
Oh.
So this is my second time watching within a couple months,
Hmm.
but I this is my least favorite of the
Okay.
four.
Hmm.
And that's like kind of like being like, well, what's my least favorite great movie?
Hmm.
Because like all four of these are special.
Yeah.
And Tokyo Godfathers hits on a very emotional level and what that deals with. And um it's a powerful film. And then Perfect Blue and Paprika are bold, ambitious, complex films. And this is channeling some of those bold, ambitious storytelling elements of going through somebody's memories and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But it's also a very personal film
Hmm.
of a character who is exploring her own past and processing. It's very intimate in terms of her experiences. And I think that's one of the most important elements of this film and what makes it resonate is we all at some point look back on our past and our
Hmm.
experiences and think about how did we get here.
Yep.
Thank you, talking heads. And it's one of those things where this is a woman who obviously had taken herself out of being an actress and has been secluded all these years and is finally letting somebody peer in to
Hmm.
her life and her experiences and her forcing herself back through all of these things. And I thought it was a fascinating journey getting to see how she got from where she started to where she was as this interviewer came in and started interviewing this older woman.
Hmm.
But overall, I think this is a very interesting film that incorporates a whole lot of different genres and elements that you don't expect from this classic like period drama to you know there's some feudal Japan, there's some space, and you're just like, what's going on here? And that's what's so fascinating and bold and creative about it.
Hmm. For me, it was mainly like this might be like it's like when this movie finished, I'm like, this might be one of the best love stories like I've seen in a while. Because the last sentence, what we hear from her as her younger self through one of her movies, it's like that kind of like underlined the movie, and it's just like, oh, this is about it. Oh, I see. Like without trying to spoil it necessarily, even though it is like 25-year-old movie, but it's I think it's also quite underseen. Like out of like, because I've even before I've seen all of his movies, I've heard of Perfect Blue. I kind of heard of Paprika. I've never heard of. Nobody seems to talk about a Millennium Actress. So I'm like, I don't actually want to spoil it, but I'm just gonna say we the theme, overall theme, the last sentence, what that character
Yeah.
says, we hear a lot. I've never heard it in a in a connection to be in love or loving somebody. That last sentence. And I'm like, that kind of like the more I sit with this movie and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this is kind of the one of the like a heartwarming, like yearning kind of love stories where it shows you
Yearning.
exactly. It shows you a different kind of love and it shows you how, you know, the, it's really just about a journey, not necessarily the destination, and what it actually can mean or what it can actually be like. And love the aspect of, you know, hey, the interviewer who we get introduced to, it might be even more relevant than we think. Because as we dig deeper, it's like, oh wait, he was there for some of these. And this was a nice wrinkle. I also loved how, and this is what we talk about again. If you have an animated movie, you have unlocked like the true cinematic potential, however you want to call
Yeah.
it. And like, so when we see the memories, the cameraman is also there, awkwardly asking, "What is happening now? Wait, this is they are coming at us, but they are but they are still obviously in her living room, so they are just they are not in any danger." But Satoshi Kon just makes it like, "Oh hey, let's have some fun with it. It's not a dream, but it's a memory." So the more I sit with this movie, the more like genuinely like I was thinking this is being more like a quote unquote basic movie. I'm gonna like, oh yeah, I see what's going on, fine. And if, with Paprika, I'll be like, oh, this is mind blowing, and Paprika is mind blowing, but this is more like n- there's a nuance to it I didn't expect, and there is a twistiness I didn't expect coming in without actually it being twisty. It's much like everything this Millennium Actress does. It's very poignant, very nuanced, very quiet. Like Paprika is like, if I make this example, is very shouty, which is
Mhm.
great. It shouts everything at you, which is great. It fits the genre. It fits what it's going for. Perfect. This whispers everything to you. It's like, hey, we're talking about this, but if you don't get it, it's fine. You can just enjoy this. It's all good. And I feel like this is the separation between those two movies. So I really appreciated that.
Well, and it is a much more quaint and quiet and personal experience
Hmm.
because this isn't some big, bold, grand conceptual
Hmm.
story. Visually, it gets to some places like that because of what her life was like
Yep.
and stuff like that. But this is really just a woman going back and realizing what's fascinating? You know what movie this actually is kind of similar to in a
Hmm.
way? Is Citizen Kane.
Kind of, yeah.
Because obviously the device for how they go, like you're literally seeing this woman's memories and not just hearing like interviews with a bunch of people about said woman, but it really is a woman looking back and realizing what was the thing that mattered most to her
Hmm.
in her life, and at the end looking back, because that the final line that you referenced is great.
Hmm. Yep.
And at the end of the day, what was the most important thing in her life? Don't think it was the acting.
Hmm.
And that's the thing, because this interviewer is like, oh my God, she was like the most amazing actress, and trying to
Hmm.
be able to talk to her and expecting these grand stories about acting and making these films. And it's like, that is not what is most important.
Hmm.
And that realization, she has her own rosebud, except it's not a sled.
It's a
Um,
key.
and that's the interesting, and I love that motif
Hmm.
of this key, and what that represents in this film. And this film has some visually striking imagery, especially with the when you have there's this one shot because I always have stills up from IMDb for films and the pink sky
Hmm.
and just her walking in this kimono and with the umbrella, it's just striking. And it's just there's so many elements here. You have it's not black and white, but it's like that vintage kind
That
of
feel.
looks like
Yeah.
an old photo kind of when she was really young.
Hmm.
And Satoshi Kon was never going to just make it simple.
Yeah.
Because why would you make it simple when you can do so much in animation?
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that it makes me sad sometimes when it's I'm watching something animated and realize it's they're not really utilizing this medium to its full
Hmm.
potential. And some stories don't need that. This is the complete opposite of a King of the Hill that really is just it's a sitcom, but it's
Yeah.
animated.
Yeah.
And it works for that because it is very grounded. This finds every opportunity to make it known that this is animation and how we can use that to bring it to life. And it is a beautiful story about this connection and her reflecting back on her life. And I think we're at a point where, yeah, we could be a little nostalgic for childhood or
Hmm. Hmm.
high school or college, but this is a woman looking back at the whole of her life and
Yep.
really processing that. And I think we all hope, many of us hope that we can reach a point where we can look back and process through our life because that means we lived a full life.
Correct.
And that's, I think that's what's very interesting about this film because what Perfect Blue and Paprika are doing are high concept ideas. This is a very human idea
Hmm.
and a very
Yep.
mature one.
Yep.
And I give Satoshi Kon a lot of credit because what this man was in his 30s making
Hmm.
this story where it's about an older woman reflecting upon her life. And I don't think a whole lot of relatively young filmmakers are going to be able to capture an authentic exploration of that, but this feels authentic.
100%. Like with everything you said, like I would just say, so this is vaguely based on an actual Japanese actress that was huge in I think if I read it correctly 50s and 60s, and then she just chose to disappear. So partially this is inspired by this Japanese actress I've never heard of. But also what I was gonna say, to your point, this is the thing, right? Like when you talk about the shots and how they look like this one way, almost like black and white. Realistically, this movie didn't have to be animated. This is as you said, this is a very human story. This is a drama. This is fairly simple, even though it's not. But I think where you separate somebody who, oh hey, I'm a director, and hey, I'm the director. It's somebody who takes this simple story and hey, what if we did this? What if we had some fun? And he, like Satoshi Kon, always would insert, in what I mentioned, the cameraman in the memories. So sometimes it's funny, but sometimes because of we explore this actress's life, we get some shots that feel like, yeah, we're in feudal Japan. So it looks more like your Japanese 50s 40s samurai
Yeah.
movie. Sometimes it just feels like straight up like a war drama, and that's
Mm.
why it's some when he said it's black and white. There are sections of this movie that feel black and white
Yeah.
because he knows exactly the shots he needs to do, like how to color different things, and he understood the animation I genuinely think on another level. And this is many reasons it's sad that we don't have him around today, because somebody who understands this specific art form so well that he only quote unquote he only did 4 feature movies, but he's still remembered by many. I think that's something to be admired, and that's something that's saying something. And him taking on this a human story and turning into this beautifully animated movie that actually touches you on some levels. And when the final line is delivered, I dare you not to be like, "Hey, I want to watch it again," like instantly. Like it just like something is there that I know when I'm gonna get back to it, I feel like I'm gonna have even deeper appreciation for this movie because it doesn't ask you a lot. It just asks you to sit there and listen to this one actress tell you about her life.
Absolutely. And what's so fascinating is Satoshi Kon kind of bridged, like, if you think about anime,
Hmm.
and you have the Hayao Miyazakis and the Katsuhiro Otomos who really made anime in the 80s into the 90s big.
Hmm.
And then you had Satoshi Kon who kind of picked up, kind of was in an interesting transitional period of that traditional 2D animation into 3D animation for anime.
Hmm.
And then today you have the Makoto Shinkai and the Mamoru Hosoda, who are some of the big anime directors of today, who it's all 3D,
Hmm.
like layered in this 3D animation. He was such an influential and game-changing filmmaker, and it's really a shame that he only had such a short time to be able to leave his art and create it. But we're all lucky that
Yes.
we're all lucky that he was there. But
Hmm.
Luke, thank you so much for coming on and talking about these two really impressive anime.
Anytime, Shane. Thank you so much for having me back.
And just remember, everybody, this is what your brain looks like on anime. Um,
Sure
and
does.
sure does. And next week for retrospective, I'll be joined by Jeff, and we'll be talking about Training Day and End of Watch. So a couple of David Ayer written crime thrillers. And then next month, Luke and I are going to dive into a double dose of Jim Jarmusch with Night on Earth and Permanent Vacation. So some of his earlier works, some of you might know Dead Man or even some of his more recent works like Patterson and stuff like that. But thank you all for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What is your favorite Satoshi Kon film out of the four? Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. The SPDM Crew podcasting network is ever expanding. We have so many great shows with all different types of interests. And if you want to be a guest on one of these shows or you have an idea for your own podcast, please reach out to us on our website. And if you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.